Thank you for joining us for our first Cooking 101 tutorial. We are at Le Cordon Bleu, the College of Culinary Arts in Seattle, Washington. This is where I work. Today we'll be doing the first of two parts, and we'll be talking about the method of sauté. Sautéing is a dry heat cooking method that basically is a very simple technique. It is one of the most popular techniques that we find in culinary arts. Sauté is a method that cooking food over high heat in the right pan with a small amount of fat that's very hot. The types of foods that we can sauté, we're looking for soft vegetables, or we can even sauté hard vegetables that are either par cooked or sliced and cut very thin. Oftentimes you'll see meats that are sautéed, like a New York steak or a ribeye steak or a filet mignon. You also see fish like salmon and trout being sautéed. When we sauté, we are looking to use the right pan. There's 3 different pans that we can choose from. Okay. A sauté pan, which is also called a sauteuse pan, has sloping sides. So you'll see that this is a non-stick small sauté pan that we would cook eggs in, for example, or maybe some vegetables. Another type of sauté pan, okay, this is a sauté pan that does not have a non-stick area to it. Okay. We also have another sauté pan. You can see that all of these sauté pans have a sloping side, and that's what you're looking for. You need a nice sloping side to it. These are heavy sauté pans at the bottom. Okay, they'll heat up quickly. The sloping sides will allow for moisture evaporation to it. Moistness in an item, the water that's in an item, is the enemy of sauté. You want to make sure to evaporate all that moisture very quickly, and we can only do that with a pan that has sloping sides. So this is called a sauté pan or a sauteuse pan. Okay, this is a sauce pot, or we call this a sautoir pan. Okay, it has sides that go up and down directly. There's no slope to it. It doesn't really encourage fast moisture evaporation like the sauté pan does. Okay, so first thing, one of the first tools that we need is the proper pan. We want a sauteuse or a sauté pan, not a sauce pan, not a sautoir pan. Okay, sautéing is a fast cooking method. It is not a slow cooking method. You'll see that once you add your items to the sauté pan, you must keep flipping them or turning them so it doesn't burn. When we sauté, we're looking for an item that has a nice golden brown outside to it, which we call a sear. Okay, we can get sear through the Maillard reaction, which is the browning of proteins, or we can get a good sear with caramelization, which is the browning of sugars, which we'll find in vegetables, for example. Okay, we're looking for a nice exterior, nice colorful exterior with a nice moist interior. Okay, if the interior is not moist, it is going to be dry. So we want a nice moist interior when we saute. Okay, so a few key points. Have the right pan, sauteuse pan, not a sautoir pan. Okay, we want to make sure we have a hot fat, which we'll go over in part 2. Okay, and understand that sauté is a dry heat cooking method, so we want to use meats. When we talk about meats and proteins, we want to use a meat or protein that is naturally tender. Okay, if I wanted to use a veal shank or a lamb shank, that wouldn't be the right piece of meat for sauté. You want something that's naturally tender, that has a good fat content to it. Okay. Oftentimes in culinary school, I teach my students that pieces of meat that are away from the hooves. So if we can picture a cow, okay, pieces of meat that are away from the hooves, like the tenderloin, the loin. Okay, those are the things that are closer to the upper back, away from the hooves. They are less exercised, naturally tender, and more fatty. Meats that are closer to the hooves are going to be less tender, more exercised, less fatty, and they're going to be very difficult to cook. So that's why we need to employ a different cooking method to it. Okay, so understand that we can sauté vegetables that need to be soft, naturally soft, like zucchini or yellow squash or onions. Okay, we might not sauté butternut squash unless that butternut squash was par cooked or cut small enough that we can penetrate the heat very quickly with sauté. Understand that sauté is a very fast cooking method to it. Okay, we have the fat, the hot fat, just to sear the item on the outside to keep the inside nice and moist. So that is part 1 of sauté. In part 2, we'll look at the method of saute step by step. We'll break it down into 3 easy steps. I'll show you the technique of flipping, and we'll talk a little bit about the different fats that we can use to saute. So thank you for joining us for the first cooking tutorial 101, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks a lot.